Selectmen meeting of Thursday, April 30th, 2020 to order. I would like to welcome everyone to our Selectmen's meeting in conjunction with the Board of Health Department. I want to say on the onset that we are in unprecedented times, and this virus known as COVID-19 seems to be changing each day with new hurdles that all municipalities have to deal with. But the number one goal, obviously, is the safety of Rockport residents as we work together, as we start to understand more and more about this virus. We will get through this as a town, but please know that the safety of our residents is paramount, and we'll do everything we can to make sure that we're making the right decisions. And I want to thank all the members of the Board of Health that are here, as well as the many residents that are joining us on Zoom. So first on our agenda, we are going to discuss and vote on whether to relax or extend the Board of Health order of April 19th relating to food and establishment closures. Mr. Vieira, would you like to start off first?
So, Mr. Chair, on this one, unless the Board of Health wants to do something different, it's all set from their last meeting. Just to update everyone, process in place to meet the instructions from the board at the last meeting. The Board of Health office, the secretary reached out to all of the food establishments. She reached many by phone. She sent emails to those she couldn't get in touch with. But everybody got some version of outreach seeking their interest. They would like to be considered for reopening. They were all informed that to be considered, they needed to develop a plan for the inspectors to consider as they work their way through the process. And they were also told, again, they needed that in place. If there are questions this evening, John Poulon, our interim inspector, is with us to respond to questions, but basically as businesses have their plans finalized, they'll get some additional outreach from the office. If they want to proactively call the Board of Health office, 53701, when their plan is done. Kelsey will facilitate getting the plan reviewed by one of the inspectors, and she'll facilitate booking a time for the physical inspection based on the directive from the board at the last meeting. So operationally, everything is in place to carry out the decision that the Board of Health made at the last meeting.
Okay. Have you received any plans thus far?
Have not.
Okay.
I know that several people have had some conversations with the inspectors about it, and I assume that there'll probably be quite a few in the next day or two. I'm not aware that any have been received yet.
Are we going to be able to, when those plans come in, are we going to be able to allow these folks to operate as of Monday?
So as long as they're able to meet the state requirements,
Okay, good.
the infrastructure is in place to
join the meeting,
review the plan, and then get someone out to inspect.
Okay. One other thing before I go to questions from either board, we will have a public comment that will be towards the end of the agenda. And I'd ask statements, questions go through the chairman. Please. Okay. Anything else, Mitch?
That was it for the update, and unless the Board of Health wants to make any adjustments to its votes from last meeting, we can go to the next item, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Anything from the members of the Board of Health?
No.
Okay.
Can I just make a comment, Paul?
Please.
Yeah, I mean, just, I know that the Board of Health acted on this, changing their order last week really quickly. And just thanks to, I know Board of Health members have worked with Mitch's office and the food inspector, the new food inspector acting to get this done really quickly. And so I just want to say nice job, and hopefully, we'll have more food options open for residents, within the next little while. I know at this point it is in people's hands to get the plans, but we're set for a quick turnaround. So hopefully we'll get a few places open quickly, but great news.
Yes. Agreed.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Dr. Wedmore?
Yeah, the
Now, for opening restaurants, this is all the restaurants that have been closed, new restaurants which wish to be inspected and put online before and be ready to open when the moratorium is raised. Which are all of those does it include?
Sure. So everybody who currently has a license, either full year or seasonal, got direct outreach as a starting point. A second round will be started for those who have never opened, have never been an establishment, as well as the inns and the B&Bs. So there's approximately a dozen who've expressed interest in reopening in the next couple of days.
Okay. Anyone else from the Board of Health? Okay. Let's go on. Do we need to vote on this?
Mitch,
Oh,
Dr. Newman has his
Dr.
hand.
Newman.
Yeah. Laura Osmond, who's not here tonight, mentioned earlier today that there's been some interest on the part of bed and breakfasts that are operating in town to perhaps be able to sell some prepared foods. As you know, they are closed. They can't function as bed and breakfasts, but I believe they see an opportunity to serve the town and also generate some income by selling prepared foods. The assumption is that they would have to abide by all the, guidelines, restrictions, et cetera, takeout, curbside delivery, et cetera. But I said that I would pass that on for consideration.
Great, thank you.
Can Mitch give us an update on that, on what would
Sure,
happen
so-
for that to
Yeah.
happen?
Unless there's any objection from the Board of Health, we'll start the next round of outreach on them to basically go through the same process of check-in with the inspectors and let it carry on and would as if they were open on the food end of things. So if there's no objection from the Board of Health.
So are all of the bed and breakfasts
Wait,
currently
wait,
licensed to
wait.
serve food as part of their, his historic bed and breakfast activity?
Part of their license is a meal or a breakfast spread. Many of them do breads, jams, granolas.
So is there going to be different kitchen requirements for additional foods or not?
Yes.
So
Yeah,
Leslie, do you want to address that?
Sure. Most of the bed and breakfasts have licenses to do continental breakfast, which is not the same as preparing a meal like scrambled eggs even. I mean, actually, I take that back. Scrambled eggs might be okay. But a prepared meal is not what most of the bed and breakfasts are licensed to do.
Mm-hmm.
So John Coulon, welcome to the team.
Thank you.
I guess there will be a slightly higher bar when we do food inspections if these B&Bs want to serve prepared foods that they traditionally haven't been licensed for.
Yes, if that is the case. If the bed and breakfast is currently licensed for what's known as continental breakfast, then they may want to do curbside selling or virtual farmers market or such of whatever fare they are known for or that they can produce or have produced normally. So they can reopen their kitchen, handling and serving up the food products that they are already known for, or it is possible for them to branch out and include other menu items, but that would require an evaluation, a written plan, certainly an inspection with that in mind. It's certainly possible. Our main goal right now is to authorize the reopening of any operations back to their normal menu items.
Thanks for the clarification.
Okay.
Anyone else from the Board of Health?
Yes, I have a question about the neck. Has the restrictions that have, the folks who are trying to open businesses on the neck, has there been any discussion about how people are going to get
What?
down there to those businesses to get the food?
That's
Or
on the
something-
next item on the agenda.
Okay,
Okay, let's take one item at a time.
okay.
Anyways,
Mr. Chair, if there's no other comment, we'll move on to the next item for you, which is bearskin neck.
Okay.
okay. Do we need to vote on this?
No.
Okay. Item C is consideration of bearskin neck access restrictions in food establishments. There has been obviously some discussion because there are a number of restaurants on the neck that would like to open up for curbside pickup, but we have restricted residents only. And how would that work? So we need to certainly have a discussion about that. And I'm very curious on people's thoughts on this. So let's start with Mitch and give us an overview, and then members of both boards can weigh in.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So at this point, it's already addressed to some extent. I guess the first piece of the issue is, the baseline on some of these establishments. The piece that needs to be dealt with next would be in the selectmen's hands if you wish to make any adjustments to your restriction for residents only. From there, once that decision is made, then there can be the group discussion on how any food service could proceed if you choose to amend or to make any adjustments to your resident-only restriction. So I would say
Okay.
that if the selectmen want to each share their thoughts, that might be a helpful place to start.
Well, I mean, I can start, and then certainly I'd love to hear from other members of the Board of Selectmen, but I would like to look at, because this thing has changed. This has changed, the virus from 3 weeks ago, as it changes all the time. But I would like to look into allowing non-residents on Bearskin Neck for pickup of food at the various restaurants or Roy Moore, just as long as obviously social distancing is adhered to, and we would allow people to come to the car and so forth, and allow this to happen. This is ever changing, but I think this is critical to their businesses, and I think town people from Gloucester and around would like to utilize our restaurants as well. So I'd like to talk more about this and see if we can come to some agreement.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Campbell.
Yeah, okay, so here's the problem that I see is, and I'm all in favor of getting these places open. I think their livelihood is paramount, and we need to really do everything we can to support them, without a doubt. The problem I have is with the social distancing side, and moreover,
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street, and last time I
joined the meeting.
Moreover, sorry, I just got some interference. The tourist nature of our town. So once people hear that our town is open, I think it's going to be a very, very daunting task to keep non-residents off of the neck, if that should be the case. I know the restaurants and food establishments will do all they can to maintain 6-foot distancing inside their establishments. My concern is what happens outside of those establishments, and when the town is pretty much, for lack of a better term, open for business. And if we can find a way to do that, great. Let's do it. Let's get these businesses open and let's make this work. But it's the outside stuff, because Bearskin Neck, as everybody knows, is small by nature. So when you start having throngs of people come in, how do we control that? Because I don't think that's a task you can really put with the police and checking IDs at the foot of the neck. It's going to be a hard thing to do. So I'd just be curious to see what the Board of Health might have to say about that and how we can maintain safe social distancing, but allowing the businesses to once again thrive and prosper.
Okay, anyone from the Board of Health? Let's do Selectmen and then we'll go to Board of Health if that's all right. Selectman Donnelly?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So I think the health of the citizens of Rockport is actually paramount, and that should really be what guides our decision here. And I think we also have to keep in mind that the decision we make today is not going to be forever. We need to, as you say, Paul, continue to monitor this. And we've opened the possibility that as events on the ground change, we can modify our decisions. But my concern right now is not rushing to open things up too quickly when we have experts like Dr. Fauci warning us against exactly that. And unfortunately, you know, in going about Rockport and Gloucester, I just don't see people really, as for the most part, taking seriously the need to wear a mask, the need for social distancing. And so I am very concerned, understanding that these businesses need to make a living. I'm very concerned that if we open things up to non-residents too soon, that we will have exactly the problem you described, Don.
Okay. Yes, Selectman Wilkinson?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So I guess to follow up on what both Denise and Don said, like my absolute highest priority as a selectman is the health and safety of the people that live here. And then obviously supporting the businesses that work here. And I think this is, as we've said multiple times, this is a marathon, not a sprint. I think that we are having short-term pain for hopefully, long-term gain. And I think we're trying to salvage some of the summer. I think we have to look at kind of a hybrid model. I think that we have to look at it in terms of two different kind of boats, if you will. I think we have to make a few tweaks to our restriction to the neck. I think, because, we did it quickly, obviously, but I think we just have to make two quick tweaks to, one, allow for, visitors and visitors to residential abutters, and, people who actually live down there so they can have guests and deliveries and that type of thing. And then I think we also need to allow for employees and deliveries to the businesses so we can get the businesses opened. So I think that is kind of one boat. And then the second boat is having, a few of the businesses open up, but I think we have to do that carefully. And I think if we do resident only on the neck, and then I think the health inspector can work with each business to work on solutions to the social distancing, whether it be a few parking spaces at Dock Square where they can do curbside to out-of-towners. That I think they can do a case-by-case kind of hybrid model. But frankly, what we've seen the last few nice days downtown, I think if we opened up businesses and opened up the neck to non-residents, I think we would have a disaster.
Do we have, thank you, Sarah. Do we have any idea, Mitch, how many restaurants would like to open up on Bearskin Neck? We're not talking a tremendous amount. I think there's probably about 5 or 6 of them there.
So I think there's 8 total. Let me just quickly look which ones are Bearskin Neck.
In addition to Roy Moore Lobster as well.
We should try not, I think we should probably try to not single out certain businesses because I think we've had multiple reach out. So I think we have to look, because obviously by law, we have to be consistent across the board. And I do think that the food inspector is in a position to kind of, business by business work on solutions, whether it be a spot in front for curbs, that type of thing. And Mitch, is it true that they can kind of do that?
They can. We'll work with the inspectors to make sure that if there's a curbside pickup area that's needed, that that would be in place. We'll work with them on that.
But a Gloucester resident could not come to Rockport and go into one of these restaurants, but a Rockport resident can?
They'd have to go to Dock Square.
Yeah, but I mean, but a Rockport resident can go down the neck in their car. I'm having a tough time getting my head around this one.
Mr. Chair, Selectman George also wants to.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ruth. Selectman George?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, I agree with what Sarah said. I think it's the two things. We need to open the restrictions on Bearskin Neck to fuel trucks and deliveries and workmen that are down there that don't live here but are working on buildings and that type of thing. Care workers, abutters, visitors. But I think the restaurant part, I think we really need to try to work with the restaurants, put stanchions up in front, get them inspected, and have some way of not allowing foot traffic to restaurants down there. I think it has to be pickup by car, and they have to be wearing a mask in the car. The people will come out, put it in the car, and maybe that will loosen it up for that. In a while, if we see Rockport is doing it right, we can look to letting Gloucester people or other people come down, but they have to stay in their car. They can't be out walking around, and they park just in that stanchion area where their pickup and delivery is located.
They would have to pay by credit card too. Over the
Right,
phone.
absolutely. They pay ahead of time, so they were expecting them down there.
Well, those are all state guidelines that the inspector would
Right.
assume deal, and all that. But didn't Ruth, was it you? Someone had the numbers that the police.
Oh, yeah.
had
I mean,
this
last Saturday, I was talking to my nephew. He was down there, got called down there. He's a police officer. And he got called down there and had to use the loudspeaker, got over 100 people out of there. And by the time he made it to the beginning of the neck, he got out of the cruiser and had about 50 more he had to tell that they couldn't come down. And I checked with them tonight, and over 50% of them weren't wearing any type of protection, didn't have masks, even with them. So that's my concern, that all these people are going to be flooding down there. I think we want to get restaurants open, but do it slowly and a safe manner by car pickup, and tell them they really need to have a mask on when they're in the car, because they're going to be having some type of discussion with the worker at the restaurant. That would be my suggestion.
If we're going to restrict access down there, first of all, I have a couple of things. Number one is the weather gets nicer, more people are going to head down towards the neck and head down to Dock Square. And we're going to create a bottleneck down there where I think Dock Square is going to become kind of the central gathering place, even for people just waiting to get down there, if you will. But who's going to look out for this? Who's going to patrol this? Is this a function of the police that's going to make sure that only people can get down there? Who is actually going to carry this out?
Well, I'd like to suggest that we take this week by week. So if we start slowly, as Ruth suggested, and see how it goes in the first week or two, then we can revise as we go. And if it does start to get to be a bottleneck, Don, then we kind of take a look at what we've done and figure out what we need to adjust. But again, this is going to be a week by week thing that we monitor.
Right. And we'll talk about this later, but at this point, I'm going to suggest that we meet weekly on Tuesdays at 4 p.m. via Zoom. So as things change, we can adjust as these things happen. Anyone else from the Board of Selectmen?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good suggestion to take it weekly. And if we're meeting weekly, we can do that. I mean, my goal, I can't tell you how many Rockporters, whether they're people who live in the downtown area or out by Halibut Point, have said to me, I'm not even comfortable leaving my house to walk my dog. And that to me, needs to be a barometer, because in this whole crisis, everyone needs exercise. Everyone needs fresh air. We're keeping the beaches is actually working well. The beaches are resident only, and people are able, Rockport residents are able to walk on the beach, walk in your neighborhood. So I think that's kind of a good barometer to me. If someone is able to, at the end of the day, take their dog for a walk and not run into a crowd of people unmasked and feel uncomfortable, then it's a win. But I think taking it weekly is a good plan. I think also if we just made some exceptions to our policy, then we wouldn't have to go reposting everything, because everything is already posted, right, Mitch, down there?
Correct. There's already signage indicating residents only.
So is there any selectman that is interested in allowing non-residents on Bearskin Neck?
Well,
hearing none. Okay.
Denise was talking.
Just the exceptions that I had mentioned earlier.
Right.
Right.
Deliveries, employees, the things Sarah mentioned.
So
once again, I come back to the point of how do you make sure that if are you saying we're limiting it to only residents and deliveries and things of that nature? Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, it's been like that. That's how it's been.
I understand, but as once again, as the weather gets nicer and more
Right.
people come down, I know we're going to revisit it. I get the week by week thing, but once it's open, it's open. I don't see how you can really restrict things down there. I'm
The
for the
enforce-
week by week thing. I'm good with that. I just don't know how it's going to work.
The
I think we
enforcement,
need a detail down there.
So we'll have a presence on the neck this weekend.
Okay.
Have an officer on both days. We somebody there every day. We don't have the staff for that.
Yeah.
That's my point.
But we will, we can do our best to prioritize the weekends. And like I said, this weekend, we were already planning on having a presence.
People are getting cabin fever. They want to get out, and the first place they want to go is to a beautiful tourist town like Rockport. So.
true. Okay, anything else on this subject? Obviously, we'll keep this on the agenda for next Tuesday as well.
So I just need to be clear, Mr. Chairman. Sounds like there's no large-scale adjustment, which
I don't think there's,
addresses the food piece, but additional items that Selectman Wilkinson indicated. Does the board want to do those? And if so, I would ask that you take a vote on that.
so Selectman Wilkinson
The
suggested
exceptions.
that the neck be for visitors of abutters and employees of restaurants and delivery people to be allowed on Bearskin Neck, but no non-residents from that point on. Is that correct, Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, basically just so that people, Mitch, however you want to word it, just basically so that anyone who lives down there, it's not affecting their daily life, and then employees and deliveries so that the restaurants can function.
Okay, so I would say if you can make that motion
Sure.
and tweak it.
And can I add a suggestion?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Bruce.
So I think that's, I totally agree. I think that's an appropriate policy. I would also recommend that we require face coverings on the
I
neck.
agree. Absolutely.
Because there are going to be enough people there that social distancing is going to be very difficult. So I would require all pedestrian traffic to wear face coverings.
So that would be the
The
next
next
item
item.
on the.
Could I also make a point? I'm not on the Board of Selectmen, but I'm on the Board of Health. And if I'm understanding this policy, what you're saying is that if a restaurant is on the neck and they want to have food for a non-resident, somebody has to leave the restaurant, walk down Bearskin Neck, go to Dock Square to give them their food. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So why on earth wouldn't you just let somebody drive and have to stay in their car and keep the neck closed for pedestrian traffic, but allow the person from Gloucester, Beverly, or Rockport to drive up, not get out of their car, pick up their food, and then they're automatically socially distancing without, we want people to stay in their cars. So I don't understand how this is helping people with social distance, and it's only kind of making it worse.
My idea was that the food inspector would help to set up a curbside down at Dock Square, a couple of curbside spaces. For the
Right, but a person's going to have to walk down the neck, Sarah, to get to that. Why would you want that?
Or offer some type of delivery. I'm just thinking on a Saturday afternoon, if we have a line of, the other issues on a Saturday afternoon, if we have a line of cars up Bearskin Neck, we are literally just trying to minimize all the areas in town where crowds could form. We're just doing the best we can. I wish I had a perfect solution. I'm hoping, honestly, I'm really hopeful that all of the residents really support the restaurants downtown.
I just think that if you allowed people to drive up the neck, you wouldn't have to worry about social distancing because it would automatically happen.
And you could make those parking spaces at the top of the neck 30 minutes, and people could park there, and then they could take the food, on the restaurants. There'd be additional spots as well.
So Mary Beth, are
my-
you suggesting that we shut down pedestrian traffic and just allow
We can't
vehicular
do that.
traffic? Is that right?
Well,
You can't do
pedestrian
that.
traffic is the ones that seem to cause the problems, right? We don't want people
Right.
out walking around.
It's
Right.
But it's both in terms of if there are lots of cars on the neck, then we have another social distancing problem.
What is that?
I agree with you, Sarah. I think if there's cars on the neck, it pushes all the pedestrians onto the side of the road and makes social distancing impossible.
Well,
I think the fewer cars on the neck, the better chance of social distancing we have.
Not if there's no pedestrians on the neck because it's closed for pedestrian traffic.
We can, because people live there, we can't restrict walking
Right.
or driving to anyone who lives or has a business down there.
Okay, Ruth, Selectman George?
Yeah, I think we just need to keep the pedestrian traffic to Rockporters and start letting Rockporters pick up food at the restaurants, in their cars, and see how that goes for the first week it's open. And let's see how much of a bottleneck there is with extra cars down there. If there's too much, I don't think we can stop pedestrians going down there. People walk their dogs down there. That will be everyone. We don't want that. We don't want it closed off to everyone in Rockport. That's not fair. But I think we need to do it week by week. And I think we need to, like we said, open it up to more of the workmen who are working down there, abutters, fuel trucks, whatever is going down there, deliveries, and let people come, Rockporters in their car, come down and pick up their food that they've called for, paid for. I don't think people should park up at the top. I think there should be a stanchion in front of each restaurant for a pickup area. And because otherwise they're going to park up there and somehow scoot out and go walking around the neck. So I think it needs to be a stanchioned area in front of each business that has a pickup. That's my idea.
I mean, and honestly, I think, Mary Beth, if we looked at it in terms of like, you know, a phased approach, if this goes well and traffic isn't, you know, vehicular traffic isn't terrible down there, we get a few restaurants open, it's working well for residents. I think the next step would be to open it to out-of-town vehicles, you know, before out-of-town pedestrians. So I think the beauty of this is if we look at it week by week, we can make tweaks and changes kind of as we see how things are going.
Okay, Dr. Wedmore?
Yeah, it seems that right now, with everything closed on Bearskin Neck, no shops, no restaurants, we still have a problem with pedestrian traffic down there. Unless we come up with a way of solving that, having another 4 or 5 restaurants doing pickup, I think is going to be incidental. You still have the problem right now, even with everything closed. I think the police department are going to have to put a substantial presence down there at any time when the sun's out.
Yeah.
I agree.
And you know, I cannot stand rules and regulations that can't be enforced. And it's going to be difficult to enforce. I mean, they're going to do the best they can, but with, you know, maybe Sarah is right. Maybe you have to get detailed police officers, but it's going to be tough to enforce, that's for sure.
Mr. Chairman, I want to ask
Yes.
Mitch, if you don't mind. Mitch, have you spoken to the chief and has he opined on this at all and given his take on this?
So in general, we had the conversation actually very specifically about this weekend and what that looks like. We have to look at what the logistics are of having an officer present every day, X time to X time. We need to look at, number one, can we fill all those details? And number two, can we afford all of those details? We'd have to look at that. I think the bigger issue is, can we fill it? Can we get enough folks willing to take those work assignments?
Well, I think maybe a good start is this Saturday, Sunday, like you said, and then maybe look out at, you know, weather, funding, et cetera, kind of week by week as we're taking things.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's have a motion.
Dr. Wedmore has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Wedmore.
Yeah, do we need a police officer there? Just as the dump actually does traffic control very well with either a paid part-time person or a volunteer there.
Mhm.
Could we not have something similar at Bearskin Neck,
What do you want?
directing traffic down there or holding them up until congestion is cleared if there's problems with congestion? And if they need backup, then they could call the police department intermittently. But it seems like this could be done a lot cheaper by either a volunteer or someone, as we have at the dump, directing traffic now.
We can certainly take a look at that. Yep.
Great.
Good
I just
idea.
have one commentary, Sadie, from Board of Health. When we have the congestion on Bearskin Neck, is the problem, where are the outsiders parking? I'm just wondering if we could think about the parking downtown, and if they're parking downtown, if we could convert those parking places to resident sticker only.
Yep.
For a period of time to just try to keep, because it is difficult to access if you're not parking right in town, or at least it's going to minimize some of the tourist.
Well, the top of the neck, that's meter parking.
I
So
think, yeah, go ahead, Mitch. I was going to say, I think you had.
So one of the items I'm going to be proposing under item E is the restriction of T-Wharf to resident and commercial fishermen only. Your point, Sadie, because I think that is a big issue. A wider parking available, and if that's closed a bit, that might be very helpful.
What about the top of Bearskin Neck, Mitch? Would that?
So that's
that should
already, it's already resident only up there.
There it is. Okay, good.
This restriction, it's already resident only. Dr. Newman has his hand up, Paul.
Oh, Dr. Newman.
Just unmuting. Yeah, one could consider even closing off, if it's possible, the end of the neck. I don't know how many tourists will want to come to Bearskin Neck if everything's closed and they can't go to the end and walk on the breakwater and all that. So if you were able to block that off, you might limit the attraction. People might not want to come up Bearskin Neck. So just a thought.
Okay.
Yep.
Anyone else want to weigh in? Okay, hearing none. Sarah, do you want to do a motion?
Sure. So, Mr. Chair, Mitch, correct me if this won't work.
Okay.
I move that the board continue its policy of allowing residents only on Bearskin Neck, with the exception of guests of residential abutters and employees and deliveries to restaurants. Of restaurant. Does that work?
And it'll be revisited. We can next week. We'll be revisiting it.
Okay. So it's clear to me now. It's just down to if you want it. Yes, I understand what you're looking for with that. Okay.
Okay, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Moved in second, and thank you, Selectman George. Roll call vote. Selectman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Campbell,
Aye.
Selectman Donnelly,
Aye.
Selectman George,
Aye.
and Selectman Murphy votes aye. And the motion passes with those adjustments to Bearskin Neck, 5-0.
Paul, I have a question.
Yes, Ruth.
What were we going to do about Dr. Cohen's suggestion about masks?
So that's a little
Coming up.
down on the
Okay, that's the
agenda.
next one coming. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll do that on that one. Okay.
Okay, moving to letter D, consideration of order relating to wearing face masks and coverings in outdoor and public places. Mitch, why don't you start and then we'll.
So this is something the Attorney General's office has changed on this matter. Their initial directive to municipalities in their FAQ that they put out was that we could not require face masks in public as a town, that we could simply issue an advisory. As the board is aware, they have amended that to now say a Board of Health, as part of its enforcement authority under Chapter 111, could require it if it wishes to as part of the safeguards in place. So certainly if the Board of Health wishes to do that, they have the ability, according to the Attorney General's office now, to do that.
Okay. Any discussion from members of the board?
I have a question. What happens if they don't wear it?
So if they don't wear it, the enforcement process for that, it would basically be a bylaw enforcement. So the chief and I had a discussion in anticipation of this meeting, and the initial step would be education. Approaching somebody, are you aware that masks are required? If that was the case, yes, okay, please put it on. No, okay, please put it on. The goal would be that the officers and the enforcement authority would have masks to provide people, and the heavy focus would be on education. In a worst case scenario or a multiple offender or a significant refusal or issue, the police department or the enforcement authority could issue fines up to $300. The focus, though, would really be education.
Okay. Anyone else from either board want to weigh in?
So this is Bruce. I guess I would propose, I think it's important that we increase the number of persons who are wearing face coverings in congested areas in town. And my proposal would be a phased one where within a certain distance, let's say 50 feet of any commercial or public building, anywhere in town, we would require face coverings in public. And this would essentially take care of the downtown area, Whistle Stop Mall area, essentially requiring face coverings. I would then actually allow, also require face coverings to be worn in public places if you're within 10 feet of anyone who's not in your social distancing group. For instance, Marmion Way can get very crowded, and if there are a lot of folks there, you would be required to wear a face mask as well. But in other situations, if you're biking alone or walking in the woods, I don't think face masks, there's any evidence that wearing face masks reduces transmission. So I guess my concern is I feel that we need to find a way to increase the proportion of folks who are walking in congested areas, in addition to social distancing, use face coverings.
Selectman Donnelly?
Mr. Chair. Yeah, so I understand your impulse there to try to minimize the burden on people while maximizing safety, but I would say that my experience has been both walking in the woods and walking outside of the downtown area that people are running without face masks, they're biking without face masks, and there are studies that show that the aerosol stream of a biker or runner travels up to 30 feet. And so if we're going to do this, we should do it. I think we have to be concerned about safety. I've been walking in the woods and come across groups of 10 people, none of whom were wearing masks. Maybe they were all family members, but that didn't help me. And so I had to step aside 6 feet into the woods and put my face mask on because they were doing nothing. So unfortunately, I think this is something we need to be consistent about. And if we're going to do it, we should do it for all of Rockport.
Okay. Dr. Wedmore?
Yeah, I agree with Denise. Many towns have already done what we're still hesitant to do. Cambridge, Somerville, Malden, they basically have passed rules saying that anyone who is outside in a public area must wear a mask, except if you're 2 in some towns or 5 in other towns. Again, I agree with Denise. If you're running, if you're biking, if you're hard of hearing and you're talking loudly, you are projecting that virus around. if we really believe in the concept that wearing masks may have some benefit in the individual not spreading viruses knowingly, then everybody should wear them, must wear them.
Agreed. Yep.
I have a quick question for Dr. Cohen. You had said something, and unless I heard it wrong, you had said that masks don't really help with that, or I forget how you actually said it. That they don't really deter. Did I hear that right, or was that wrong? I'm just curious.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to imply that at all, Don. Masks do. The situation is when you're alone and no one is around. I think that minimizes the potential to expose others if you are infectious. But if folks want to go to face masks in all public places, I would not be against that. I was trying to find a happy medium that would allow for some situations where I think people are less likely to be using masks.
Thank you.
So,
I think when people are wearing masks, there's, and when you see people on the street wearing masks, there's a certain sense of comfort that you get knowing that people are taking this serious. So, how do you envision, Mitch, or if we vote in the affirmative, rolling this out?
Can I make a point?
Excuse me?
Could I make a point?
Yes, go ahead.
It's just that sense of comfort that you're feeling, Paul, that's got me worried.
Thank you.
The articles that, we sort of send out through the Board of Health there's only really scant evidence that wearing a mask outside is really doing anything. And again, I'll argue, as I argued last week, that, this having a face mask on is providing actually little benefit and maybe actually hurting, because people are not socially distancing. You're not jumping in the woods, Denise, where you probably should be jumping to the side if you see a group of people, masked or not. And so I would argue that maybe there is a downside to face masks, number one. The other point I was going to make, let me see if I cannot lose my train of thought here, was, I'm sorry, I've lost my train of thought, but that's one thing I'd like to sort of talk through a little bit. I'm not exactly sure, Bruce. I mean, maybe you can help me. All the readings that you provided for us doesn't seem to indicate that there's a lot of benefit, and so I'm wondering, except for, okay, so here's my point. The CDC or the DPH has said that they do suggest face masks and covering where there's evidence of community spread, as opposed to people is sort of getting this virus from direct person-to-person contact. So I wonder if we could hear from our nurses who are doing the contact tracing. Are the cases in town actually from community spread? I mean, are people getting this from walking down the street, or are the people in town getting this virus from people they live and work with, and having direct contact with somebody?
I got your point. Thank you.
Cassie and Teresa are both unmuted when you're ready, Mr. Chairman.
What's that?
The two public
and Ruth.
Cassie and Teresa are unmuted when you're ready.
Okay, let's start with Selectman George first.
Yeah, just another thing. I mean, Saturday, that busy day, I drove from about Atlantic Avenue through town, through Beach Street to Granite. I counted 58 people, tourists, big groups. No one had face masks. There were 1 and 2 they had. In a group of 6, 1 or 2 people had a face mask. These are all tourists who are coming into our town. And I just think we can't have people walking around town without masks.
Agreed.
Well, we definitely believe that there is widespread community transmission in every city and town in Massachusetts. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, for the tourists that are coming to town, which they're going to come, it's inevitable. We need to make use of our signage and our DPW signs at the access points into Rockport that let people know that it's now required should this become something that we adopt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you say, Mitch, there were other people that wanted, other
Well,
public health
Can
people?
I ask a quick question? Could
Yes,
we
go ahead.
go back for a minute to at the beginning, Dr. Cohen had a proposal that was like to require masks. Could he just review that again? Because I think we're kind of going back and forth. It might make sense for him to just put that out there again.
Sure. My idea was essentially to where we know there's congestion to require face masks, and where there is not congestion to strongly recommend that they be used but not require them. That's essentially based on my research what makes sense, but if it's impossible to enforce that, I would be comfortable with just requiring face masks. I think we need to take some action to increase the use of face masks in town. Although Mary Beth is correct, the literature is still equivocal about the impact of face masks. But I do disagree with her in the sense that face masks do, in most places where they're worn ubiquitously, help reinforce the culture of social distancing. So people can't use the masks in lieu of social distancing, but certainly we need to make sure that social distancing is maintained and strengthening even with required face masks.
Yeah, thank you. I think that honestly, I think that might be a nice balance because his proposal might be a nice balance. I mean, just as like parents with kids, I think, the point is obviously congested areas. We go for a walk every day. We walk down to the beach. We wear our masks through the neighborhood down to the beach, onto the boardwalk. If we get onto the beach and there's no one within sight, we take the masks off. And frankly, that's where we get some air, which is nice. But if you're in a congested area, you put the mask. I would obviously defer to the actual doctors for this one, but that proposal seems really reasonable to me.
And I think too, Sarah, it's important that we, through this, encourage people to get exercise. And it sure is hard to exercise with the mask on. And, running and biking are good for you. But I do agree that, if you're coming across somebody, it's good to have something to put over your face. But I think, if you're in the middle of the woods all alone around a beach, you need to exercise and you just can't breathe.
Yeah, but at least this way you would have it with you, hopefully for your walk through town to the beach or, while you're going to Dogtown, that type of thing. And, I think a lot of this is personal responsibility. We're not going to we don't have the police force. And honestly, I don't know if we want to be in the position where, our policemen are chasing people around. There is a high level of personal responsibility, but I think if we went with that proposal and required them in congested areas and highly encouraged them everywhere else, that's like pretty common sense to me right now.
Would we require them in certain districts is the question. So say the downtown district.
Can I, Mary Beth, I live on a dead end street and I can't tell you the throngs of people running, walking, biking, parking at the end of the street to walk their dogs in the woods. You're not alone in the woods right now. There are lots and lots of people walking on Granite Street, not even near downtown. I was passed by 2 runners yesterday who didn't have masks on, a biker who didn't have a mask on. And I just think, unfortunately, we are in a time when we need to do something that's not easy. And this is for everyone's protection.
I'm going to agree with Denise on this one. And the problem I have, though I don't think Dr. Cohen's suggestion is unreasonable, I think it's a great suggestion. However, the problem is people are going to start asking, should I be wearing a mask? Should I not be wearing a mask? Is it too congested? Is it not congested enough? So if we're going to put a policy in place, rather than worry about, well, you're 10 feet away from it, no, just either put it in or take or don't. It's one or the other. Because when you start segmenting sections of town, I mean, how do you put signage up? How do you do all these things to let people know? It gets too confusing.
Yeah.
I'll just add. working in an area too where, I think we're talking about community spread. I mean, I'm working in Chelsea where literally 50% of the patients that we're testing are positive. So, I think the threat is real. I mean, we don't have that many cases in Rockport, but we very well
Easily
could.
could. Yep.
And I just think, although I like Dr. Cohen's, thought process, I think humans, just behaviorally, I agree with just an easy approach where everybody wears a face mask, because in reality, if we're at the beach and nobody's around, we can take our face mask off. Nobody's around. But the problem is that, I think Denise is experiencing, it's just the lack of, when you're walking through the woods and and other people are not wearing their masks, it's really difficult. So I would tend to want to be very conservative, just knowing that in reality, if nobody's around, we're going to take our mask off and that's fine. But we're going to slip it back on once we see someone. Just like when I have my dog off the leash, I see a dog, I put him on the leash. So I don't see it very much different than that. And I really do believe that, the data may be equivocal, but when you have people coughing and sneezing, we know that those droplets spread. So it really is important. And I think if everybody has a mask on, it actually does remind us of the seriousness of it, because I think it's very easy to forget, especially when it's nice out.
Yeah, I live on off Main Street, further uptown. The sidewalks are narrow, and during the day, you really can't walk down the street. At least half the people are not wearing masks.
Right.
And they're walking in groups, and people are not taking it as seriously as they should. And even though I agree that the face masks have not been shown scientifically to be super effective, I think they send a message that we mean business.
Yep,
and
I
that
agree.
we take it seriously. And I think that we should require them at all times. And if you're in the woods alone, of course, you can take it off. You're not hurting anybody. You're still living up to the spirit of what we're trying to accomplish. So that's my thought.
Yeah, that was the point I was making at the beginning.
Mr. Chairman, just one note for the boards to consider. One specific request on this from the police chief. If the Board of Health does opt to do an order, he has specifically asked that the order state that the operator of a motor vehicle is not required to wear the face mask or covering while operating such vehicle.
Perfect.
That makes sense. Yep.
That makes totally sense.
Could it be in vehicles? I mean, is it necessary? I understand obviously if you're picking up curbside, but if you're just, if your family's out taking a drive, does everyone else in the car have to be wearing one, or while you're could we exclude vehicle? Well, that's another question for the doctors.
Certainly something for the board. Just wanted to make sure that was out there from the chief. He's concerned about some liability issues with folks who may claim something from wearing a mask while they're operating.
So you're saying that people should not wear a mask while they're driving, right?
His request is yes, while they're driving, go on when they're done or when they're interacting with someone, but while they're operating the vehicle, they should take the mask off.
Right.
Correct. No, that makes
Sarah, I
sense.
haven't seen any regulations or suggestions that require passengers in motor vehicle to wear masks.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay,
I
Dr.
think we're
Wedmore?
really focusing on pedestrians, cyclists, and motorcyclists and bicyclists.
Okay,
joggers.
Okay, Dr. Wedmore?
Yeah, just to reinforce from a health point of view, if you are driving and wearing a mask, there is a potential for your vision getting obstructed. So
Right.
You can take the mask down off your nose and face and still wear it. And fetch it back up when you roll your window down. And with respect to people in the car, it is almost self-evident that other people in the car are part of the same biological exposure path.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, hearing none. We're going to need a motion, correct?
So the Board of Health would need to do the motion, and I guess to make sure that we have it enforceable, I would just ask whoever wants to make that motion, if you do from the Board of Health, to say what you want, in 1 second to just structure it so that we can make sure we have all the pieces to it.
How do we feel about putting an end time on this order so that it will expire unless we decide to go ahead and renew it at the end of, was it May 18th? Is that Governor Baker's, was that the now new end of the state of emergency? Unless you,
So that isn't the end of the state of emergency. That's the end of the that would be the end of the essential business order. You could set whatever date you wanted to as a board, though. That's the board's prerogative.
Okay. Sid, do you want to take this?
Yeah. I move that the Board of Health require every person in Rockport above the age of 4 to wear a mask when in the public, outside of their home.
Okay. Is there a second?
So before you make the second, Dr. Wedmore, could you just add on to that?
Oh, yeah, about the driving.
The driving, and that the Rockport Police Department is authorized to enforce, including levying appropriate fines.
Yes, if you.
Sid, I would prefer face covering to mask because I think that's more general.
Good
and
point.
I would also ask that it's off people's property because I don't want to wear one in my yard.
That was part of it, Mary Beth.
Oh, it said outside your house.
Okay, house or home, or yard.
I second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Dr. Wedmore,
Yes.
Dr. Newman,
Yes.
Dr. Cohen,
Yes.
Dr. Jimenez,
Yes.
and Mary Beth Murphy.
No.
No, and the motion passes 4-1.
Okay, so just to recap, the police will be made aware that the board has issued an order requiring face coverings for everyone over the age of 4 in public outside of their home and personal property. Rockport Police Department is authorized to enforce, including levying fines as appropriate, and that the operator of a vehicle is not required to wear a face mask or covering while operating such vehicle. Is that correct? Dr. Wedmore, does that match?
Yes, yes.
Mitch, you'll communicate this out via the regular things that we do.
Yes, so we will issue
Code 9.
a special code red for this.
Yep.
Unless the,
Okay.
I get this, I would pose that as a question, I guess. Now, we can issue a special code red tomorrow for it, or we can issue it as part of Monday's call. Do you want it to
I
be?
guess my preference would be as soon as possible. Hopefully, we'll get it out before the weekend, and we'll see how successful. And I would suggest that, you know, the enforcement be phased in so that if folks aren't aware, that, you know, just a gentle reminder. But I think the sooner we get this going, the better.
Yeah.
And Mitch, in the code red, I would just stress that social distancing is still important, that a mask doesn't take the place of.
And hand washing, and hand washing.
I added that this week, hand washing.
Thank you.
She's on fire. Okay, anything, are we good on this?
Okay, so we'll issue one tomorrow for this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Great, and we'll put it out on Facebook as well.
Ruth had a question.
Who did?
I have a question.
Oh, Ruth, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. Maybe with the thing tomorrow, we can just do sort of a recap of the highlights of tonight's meeting also. Get a couple other points in besides just the mask.
Yeah.
If we have anything further to go on of other considerations of COVID.
Sure. Okay. All right, let's move on. If anyone else has anything, okay. Hearing none, let's move on Consideration of current or additional restrictions regarding COVID-19.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask that the consider the additional restriction changing all parking on T Wharf to resident and commercial fishermen only immediately.
Okay. We kind of touched upon this earlier in the meeting. Any discussion from the Board of Selectmen?
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
Are there any other places that need to be considered? If we're going to take a motion like this, is there anything else that we should be considering? Any other areas of town, Mitch?
Yeah, that's just as a, I'm just wondering if it makes sense to limit it to just T Wharf, or if we can make the entire general district resident only to really damp down on the number of people down there. I mean, that's only what, 20 spaces down on T Wharf for non-residents?
Well, I think two things. I think it would be great if we could make the whole area. I'm concerned that we don't have the enforcement for that, which we don't, especially if we're going to have a police officer at some points at the end of the neck. I think if it were partially self-enforced, maybe make it expand it more. But I think part of the thinking on the wharf is you kind of pull down Broadway into town, and there's that nice, beautiful sign that says "Stay home, wear a mask." But apparently, you haven't stayed home if you've driven down Broadway and arrived in town, which unfortunately leads itself to people who are willing to go. It is what it is. But anyway, but the issue on the weekends has been, Saturday mornings you arrive and T Wharf is like open. It's like right there, a huge open parking space, huge open parking lot. Mitch, do you think without, if it were just kind of signed, but not necessarily, patrol, that we could expand it to more resident only down there?
Additional spaces, you mean?
Yeah.
We would certainly have the police do their best to all of it. The easiest area is T Wharf. We could certainly, if the board wanted to do more than that, we would do our best to manage the enforcement of it in other areas.
Yeah, I mean, I think the message we're trying to get across is, Rockport is not open yet. At this point, we're trying to take care of, the mental, physical, and well-being of the people that live here, first of all, and then, open up as we can. Mm-hmm. I think even pulling in and seeing a sign that says, downtown area, resident only parking, might make some people at least drive out of, further out and take a walk on a street and then go home.
And I would also expand that, Sarah. I mean, last week we talked about the problems at Halibut Point and how they close down their parking lot and people just park on Curtis Street or wherever.
Yeah.
And if that whole area near Halibut State Park were resident only, we could preserve that park for residents and people who live there, but just not allowing people to park in, to have any access at all unless they parked in some, I don't know where.
Yeah, I actually have people, residents who reached out who live in the avenues. And I literally told them, I said, if I were you, I would wake up on Saturday morning and put your cars out of your driveway and out on the road to block the spots. Because, it's like a steady stream of people. So I think that's probably something, that area is probably worth it to have the chief look at specifically, and maybe that's a next week issue.
Yeah, well, can we put that on the agenda for next week, Mitch?
Yeah.
Sure, we can look at that for Tuesday, yep.
But I don't know, what are people's thoughts on expanding the, the resident only to the, the down to, kind of Main Street?
I agree with Mary Beth, and I think it should be, if we're going to do this, all we're going to do is start creating bottlenecks for people to go in different directions. And if we're going to send a message that we want residents and businesses only, then we should be prepared to take the steps necessary to ensure that to the highest degree possible. So I agree. I think, Dock Square, coming up Main Street, back up, go as far as, I don't know, maybe the Inn on Cove Hill, and then as you're coming around, I think if we're going to do that and we're going to be firm about this, that's a step that we should be taking, or at least considering.
Okay. Denise? Denise, you're muted. There you go.
Hi there. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
The thing I'm concerned about is employees who work in town who are not residents, and making sure that we allow somewhere for them to park. And home health aides who are going to visit people who live downtown. Like, we've got to have some allowance for those sorts of concerns.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe we could work something out with the police, but of course.
Like some type of placard that they could put on their windshield. Ruth?
I just want to, remind everyone that we kind of we're talking about opening restaurant areas for pickup, and the ones not on Bearskin Neck can have people pick up food from Gloucester, Essex, or wherever in their car. So limiting parking for them to pull in and pick up something, unless we have stanchions in front of each place through town. We really need to think about that parking too for those people picking up stuff.
I think that that should just be addressed separately, so that each restaurant has specified whether it's space or an area blocked off.
Okay.
Okay, well, let's deal with, we'll deal with T Wharf right now, and then we'll plan on Tuesday's meeting at 4 p.m. Spend a little bit more time on other spots. You need a vote, Mitch?
Yes.
Okay, Sarah, or would someone like to make a motion regarding?
I'll make a motion.
Sure.
I'll make a motion.
Please.
That,
Please.
T Wharf is as of now restricted for parking of town residents and fishermen, and there's no out-of-town parking allowed.
I think you have to say commercial fishermen.
Commercial fishermen, sorry.
Perfect. Okay, you've heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there going to be,
Moved and
some
seconded.
allowance? Wait.
Oh, you're muted. There you go.
Thanks, Mitch. I'm in a noisy household too, so. Is there going to be some allowance for home health aid workers and employees?
Oh, Denise, I think right now we're just restricting T Wharf, and then Tuesday we're going to look at other areas. So,
but do we know that employees, for example, don't park there? And are they going to have enough other options?
You have all of Dock Square.
I think that since there are no meters, I think it's I think it's wide.
Okay.
I think it's pretty open down there.
It's pretty wide open.
I think if anyone has an issue, I think there are lots of business owners on here. I think if anyone has an issue, they could call the police, and they're happy to work with people, I would assume. They always are.
Good.
All right.
Okay, you heard the motion. It's been seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, roll call vote. Selectman Wilkinson?
Aye.
Selectman Campbell?
Aye.
Selectman Donnelly?
Aye.
Selectman George?
Aye.
And Selectman Murphy votes aye, and the motion passes 5-0. Thank you, everyone. And moving right along, staff administrator / incident committee updates. Anything that you have for us, Mitch?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So a few items certainly we've been working on increasing our signage throughout town. The incident command team has been putting quite a bit of effort into beefing up some of the signage, some of the interactions. As everybody saw, and certainly is on the Gloucester Times, the town took a bit of a fun approach to try to get people's attention with 3 of our vehicles. Department, fire department, and public works with the sheets on the front saying wear your mask. Certainly those take on a different context now with the requirement, but we've really been focusing on trying to continue to get the message out. Number one, that wear masks, social distancing, but also that we're simply not open yet. We're not ready for folks to come and join us. So we've been working pretty diligently as a group on making that happen. To do that, we've been very diligently working on acquiring PPE. That's an ongoing process for us, like I know it is for every other organization. The Director of Emergency Services is focused on continuing working through that. He's in daily contact with MEMA to ensure that we can continue to get the gear that we need for all of our first responders, especially the ambulance who are having direct contact. So Our levels at the moment are okay. We always need more. We're continuing to procure those as we go along. A lot of places, and I think everybody's experiencing this, I'm sure that Barb is feeling the same way at the hospital. A lot of stuff's on back order. It's just we're waiting. So we continue to press it. MEMA provides a stopgap whenever we need it in different areas. So we were also able to help out an organization in town this week who had none but needed some. We were able to make that accommodation to ensure safety in that facility. So overall, we continue to move forward. As I mentioned on last week's call, we are in the marathon. Every day we just continue to plug along. And starting tomorrow, we will get out these additional restrictions and be sure that we're working to move forward by carrying out the orders of the Board of Health and the Board of Selectmen.
Perfect. Well, thank you for all your hard work, and everyone in the town has certainly stepped up. Something that we had no idea that we would be dealing with 2 or 3 weeks ago. But I think we've handled it very well, and there's much more work to be done, but we're getting things done, which I appreciate. And thank you, Mitch, for your hard work.
It's a
Anyone
team. Thank you,
else?
Mr. Chairman. One other quick note, since there's quite a large audience, the board at your Friday meeting postponed all Memorial Day ceremonies and the parade. So just a note, because there's a large contingent here. Get that message out. The board will consider rescheduling at a later date.
Right. Absolutely. When it's safe and so forth. Any other comments from members of the Board of Selectmen?
No, doing a great job, everyone.
What's that, Ruth?
Doing a great job, everyone. Gosh.
Yeah, I agree. Any moving on, Board of Selectmen or Board of Health updates? Anything from the Board of Health that you'd like to update us on?
Let's
Sure.
see.
Sid, is it okay? I
Yeah.
do my update?
Yeah, please. I was going to go through, folks.
Okay. So I'm on the weekly State Health Department call on Tuesday. And certainly we all know there's an extended governor's order to May 18th. Massachusetts is also developing a reopening advisory board made up of a variety of folks with different expertise. From the Board of Health point of view, they're trying to develop and incorporate objective criteria such as less than 10% of all COVID tests being positive as an indicator for reopening. The recommendations of this board will appear prior to May 18th. Also, DPH warned of potential scams, saying that telemarketers are calling from boards of health, asking for social security numbers and identifying information. I don't know whether anyone has gotten in touch with Rockport officials yet, but those are beginning to emerge. There's guidance being developed right now for seasonal activities and camps. This guidance will be available by May 18th. There's farmers market guidance already out there. The issue came up whether communities should be doing sero surveys. Some communities in Massachusetts are already doing sero surveys. There is no standard protocol, and these sero surveys are a bit problematic because the antibody testing is still in flux. The quality of these tests is really still hasn't been determined. And the general sense is they're not good for diagnostic purposes, but they might give a sense of overall prevalence. I think it's probably way premature for Rockport to consider any community sero testing at this point. A couple just updates in the US. There's 1.1 million confirmed cases, 61,000 deaths. The case fatality rate is slightly under 6%, with deaths of around 19 per 100,000. The US has 5 times more cases than any country, although the death rates still seem to be highest in Europe. Massachusetts, Illinois, and Maryland are 3 states that are really struggling with growth of the number of cases currently. Massachusetts has the 3rd highest number of cases, the 4th highest number of deaths, over 60,000 cases and over 3,400 deaths. Essex County has 8,380 cases. It's the 3rd highest county in Massachusetts and the 2nd highest number of deaths. And the death rate in Essex is slightly higher than the statewide death rate. A summary for Cape Ann: there are 204 deaths recorded up through April 29th on Cape Ann, with Gloucester having 143, Rockport 33, Essex 15, and Manchester 13. The case rates in Rockport and in Gloucester are the highest on Cape Ann, around 500 per 100,000, and they're lower in Essex and Manchester. But the numbers are so small, I think there's a lot of variability when we look at the overall case rates. So that's my summary. Thanks, Sid.
Bruce, could I ask you a quick question about that? Did I hear you say that the percent positive rate has to be under 10% in order to start lifting restrictions? And if that's true, do you know where we are right now?
So no, there have, that was an example of a potential benchmark that could be used if we're looking for health benchmarks for reopening. There's no final set. DPH is trying with the support of outside researchers to develop objective benchmarks. And that's just an example of one that had been proposed. There are no final set. And of course, you know, any benchmark would be subject to the availability to collect the data for those measures.
Thank you.
Hey, Ron Newman, you want to tell us about the hospital?
Yeah, just briefly, the hospitals remain busy, but it appears that not only Beverly Hospital, but the other hospitals within the Leahy BI system appear to be at a plateau. Again, the administration feels that there's not a big risk of the intensive care units or the hospitals in general being overwhelmed by caring for patients in this wave of COVID patients, but it was stressed that it's likely that there will be subsequent outbreaks along the way, but things seem to be stable at this point. I don't know if Barb McCarthy has anything to add.
Hi, thanks, Ron. Yes, am I off mute?
You are.
Yes. Okay, so you're right, Ron. We're cautiously flat right now. We're certainly not out of the woods as far as positive COVID patients. Addison Gilbert has, for the most part, stayed clean, as we say. We really don't have any known positives. We try to transfer those folks to Beverly. We are seeing an increased volume of non-COVID care, which actually is encouraging, that those folks who are out there with chronic conditions feel comfortable coming back to the hospital for care. We were worried about where those folks have been. I would say that we continue with our recovery plan, but it's slow, it's cautious, and I think, as Ron mentioned, it really is looking at those policies and procedures that may not be perfect right now, but would serve us well as we plan over the summer and into the fall for the next wave. Antibody testing, IgG testing, is available, and it is available as of this week. There is guidance and priorities that have come out and are coming out from the lab and from the medical executive committee. And it looks like at this point right now, we may test colleagues so that we can get a feel for some of that epidemiological results, knowing that, like Bruce said, it really isn't going to change diagnosis or care management at all. And lastly, I would say that one of the big pushes that's still out there is to really be cautious in how we're working with long-term care, SNFs, congregate living situations. And DPH has allocated a good amount of money or funding for long-term care facilities with a bunch of accountability and support systems tied to that. And one of those is 100% testing of residents and 100% testing of staff. So we're seeing a big push in the industry around us to take advantage of those funds, because there really is a good amount of money tied to those. So those will also be contingent on having some infection control practices in place, and may lead to some DPH on-site reviews of long-term care facilities to judge the compliance with those regulations. The end of my report. Thank you.
Barb, could I ask a question about the hospital for a second, or Ron?
Sure.
You mentioned that we are seeing more people coming in for not routine things, but you're chronically ill patients. Could you state for the board and for the other people on the call what exactly the hospital is doing to sort of segregate the COVID patients, known COVID patients, from the sort of general populations going in for broken bones and all sorts of other things, so people can feel safer about going into the hospital?
Yeah, we spend a lot of time on surge planning. We spend a lot of time on cohorting. So as we have sort of 2 or 3 floors that are really intentioned at Beverly for cohorting of COVID positive patients, we've also opened up the PACU, the recovery room, that isn't being used extensively for OR cases right now, and are moving some critical care patients out there. Our critical decision unit at Beverly is now totally negative pressure, so those folks are all COVID positive, and is a relief valve for some of the floors. And we're really trying to have patients at Addison Gilbert that we know are COVID negative, so that we can care for those folks in what we're calling sort of a clean environment, although no place is really clean at this point. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we spent a lot of time cohorting and re-cohorting patients. You're right.
And if I could just say that there have been a number of cases at Denmark, both among patients and staff. The DPH is involved, and National Guard will be testing all employees and residents, and they're taking appropriate measures, to monitor things and to limit the number of cases. I don't know if our public health nurses would like to say anything about it. Anything more?
I'm glad to hear that about Denmark. We've sent out at least 2 or 3 surveys to all the administrators and directors of nursing service of all of our area nursing homes, and we've not been successful in hearing from Denmark. So I'm glad to hear that. Thank you, Ron.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they've put a request in for the National Guard to come out and do universal testing of all residents and staff, but I don't know that they have a date set yet. Because they have had positive staff, they are now running pretty low and have put in formal requests for nursing and CNA staff. I think that's a common theme among many nursing homes and long-term care facilities, the need for CNAs. When I spoke to Denmark earlier this week, they reported they had enough PPE for 1 week, but they were encouraged to put in a request now because they'll be running really low within about 7 days. When I spoke to them, they had not closed to new admissions, so DPH was on the call with us and really requested that they stop taking any new patients because they're so low on staff. Their census is currently 47 residents and they have capacity for 76. So they do right now have room to spread residents out, which is a really good thing. So we will be looking for, you know, the National Guard to arrive and do that testing. Joanne Carboni is my point of contact there now. She's the director of nursing, and she's very interested in exploring the governor's funding offer. So we went through with her the checklist and the fact that the facility would be audited, and recommended reaching out to the Department of Healthcare Quality and Safety to have a surveyor come out. So that's the update from Denmark.
How about also Old Farm Inn?
What was that, Ruth?
Oh, have we reached out to Old Farm Inn where they have you know, long-term residents over there also? It's small, but they should also try to get in on some testing.
Old Farm Inn?
Yeah, it has head injury.
Okay. Can reach out.
Yeah.
Sure. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Ruth. We have not reached out to them, but that's a good idea as well.
Yeah, they're very vulnerable population.
Go ahead, Sid.
While we're talking about testing, we've got the high school apartments, we've got the Pigeon Cove Ledges, we've got Millbrook Park, which are separate apartments, but in essence, they're getting very close to congregate housing.
Mm-hmm.
Could we test those folks and find out what's going there for their own safety when you get troops in to do some testing?
There's a hierarchy for testing, Sid, and they would be at the level of hierarchy 6. So if they work with their individual PCPs, they certainly can get tested at urgent care at Danvers, where we're not at capacity for testing there daily. We probably see about 80 patients come through that, and we can handle up to 150 a day. So we're taking all comers with a PCP order, but we're not doing universal testing in settings like that yet.
Is that something that's anticipated, Bob? Because getting folks to go to Danvers is not the easiest hurdle to get over.
Yeah, agree. Now, you know what? I don't think there's testing supplies enough to handle that yet.
Okay.
Denise, did you have a question? You got to unmute.
Yeah, is there anything that we can do to help accelerate the arrival of the troops to do the testing at Denmark? I mean, would it help to reach out to Bruce Tarr to ask for his help?
My sense is DPH is trying to deploy the National Guard as quickly as possible. The nursing homes and long-term care facilities have the option to do the testing in-house or have the National Guard deployed. Most of the small ones, I think, are choosing the National Guard. I don't know that there's any way to move up the list.
And initially, Denmark was interested in doing the testing themselves, but they've stopped that aspect of the mobile testing program, I believe, because in the weeks past, facilities that did their own testing, the test vials arrived at the state lab and they were broken. So there was some inconsistency on how they were performed and how they were shipped. So now the only option is to have the National Guard come, which I think has put more pressure on them. So it just is, you know, maybe taking a little bit longer for them to honor all requests.
And then the other question I had is, Mitch, can we get the word out to Millbrook Park residents or the Rockport Housing Authority about this other option to get a PCP referral?
Sure, we can reach out to them and to their executive director and let her know.
I'll touch base with them tomorrow.
Great.
So Mitch, this is Barb again. All of our PCPs are aware of the process for doing that, but let me get you a document to you tomorrow so you're aware of what the process is to get folks tested so that you can answer a question if you need to.
That'd be great. Thank you, Bob. And Ruth, you'll do the outreach as well. That'd be perfect.
Yep, I'll speak to Millbrook, and I'll also speak to Harbor Light, who has both Pigeon Cove Ledges and the high school apartments. Tell them about it and tell them, and I'll offer to take people up. I don't mind.
All right, Ruthie, I'll get you a copy of that document too.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Anything else under Board of Health or Selectmen updates? Okay, health agents, health nurses, and food inspectors updates. Do we have anything?
So we've got John on, we've got Leslie, Chassis. Have anything?
Any updates that you folks would like to bring up?
Leslie has her hand.
Yes, Leslie.
Thank you. The coronavirus page of the Board of Health website has been updated to include the orders we've issued, the notices we've sent out, and resources to help people. We created signage for multi-unit buildings about the need to wear face coverings in the common area. And this is on our webpage, the coronavirus page of the Board of Health page, and has been sent out to Harbor Lights. We'll send it to the other large apartment buildings. The website also has the door signs we created about face coverings when entering food establishments. And we'll work with Laura and John to get some signs laminated so they can share them as the establishments open. The post office has a policy about wearing face coverings and signs at the entrance. And I'm still planning to reach out to the postmaster to see if there's a way we can notify Snowbirds of the 14-day quarantine requirement. We've begun scheduling soil testing and septic construction inspections. We're making sure everyone is following the state's guidelines for physical distancing at construction sites. And finally, we still get nuisance complaints, for example, of a neighbor feeding seagulls, making it difficult to enjoy cooking or eating outside on one's deck. So we'll follow up with a letter to the seagull feeder. That's it.
The problems Rockport has.
Yeah. That one sounds easy compared to some of the other problems we talked about this evening. Good. Anything else, Leslie?
That's all. Thank you.
Anyone else? The food inspector? Or
Has a comment.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I have a question. We've discussed the necessity of food operations to present a plan for how they're going to comply with the Rockport and state of Massachusetts COVID-19 mandates, including the use of masks and gloves where appropriate, and also social distancing. Each establishment is going to certainly be responsible for enforcement on their own, but I'm looking for direction as to whether the plan be written as a mandate or be suggested.
I would say written.
Yeah, written.
Yeah, John, I think we need the documentation. I would
I
require a
agree.
written plan.
I need to have that in writing, of course, in the minutes should suffice, but I need to be able to enforce what you folks are determining to be not only policy, but a local mandate.
John,
Good.
yeah, a question. Assuming each restaurant which is closed and wants to start doing takeout, and there are a number of those, and we've approved takeout. Now, as in the past, what's happened is the food inspector has looked the plan over, used their common sense with the template that the state has put out, and say yay or nay. It doesn't seem to me that each of those plans would need to come to the Board of Health itself to have a vote on. If that's going to happen,
No,
this will
it's
be
not.
delayed till health freezes over.
No. What I need from you is the determination whether a plan first needs to be written. Is it a mandate or a suggestion? And then it would be up to me and any other of your agents to enforce that. There's no intent to have it go before the board.
Okay.
Great.
Anything else?
Just
Okay,
curious to the public health nurses how it's going with contact tracing and if they're still able to keep up with that.
Oh, we're off. Yeah, we're both doing contact tracing. You know, we get a confirmed case, we're interviewing and getting those contacts. It seems to be going well between the two of us. Everybody that we contact seems to be very appreciative of the calls and our follow-up calls as we move through their illness.
Good.
Teresa and Chassie, has the CRC contacted you, or are you in touch with them to begin that coordination, or is that a little ways away still?
So the CTC will be starting tomorrow, I believe. May 1st is when they will take any cases that we don't acknowledge with either we have to say no if we would like to keep it, yes if we would like the CTC to take it, and if it's left blank, they will automatically take it. And I believe that starts tomorrow for Massachusetts. It was.
So you've had conversations. I guess there's an area supervisor with whom you know is your point of contact.
Yes, I've been contacted just briefly, but I think it was in response to other communities sending cases our way. So.
Teresa, on the contacts, if you have a sentinel case and you have, say, 12 potential contacts, how effective are you in getting all of those 10 contacts here in Rockport? Because some towns, sometimes it's the list is not 100% that they're able to catch.
Well, for the most part, the contacts have been not quite that many, unless it might be a situation where they've been at work. But with most people adhering to the stay-at-home order, it mostly consists of families. Just family units that we're finding that are the contacts. Especially now, early on, we were finding people that may have had a dinner party, that type of thing, and we were, I think, pretty successful capturing most of those people. And being able to reach out to them.
Thank you.
I guess there is a general concern statewide as communities begin to open, the number of contacts, which seemingly are really low right now, will expand, and that will lead to increased workload and a little more difficulty in cracking down all the contacts. So that's one of the downsides of opening.
So Chassie, this is Barb. Any problems working with the hospital to get the data that you need?
No, although I've learned over the last couple of weeks. So we have a really nice system with Beverly Hospital, filling out like a line list almost, putting names on, emailing it. Is it to Carol Jones? Excellent. And then we get it back with some, not a whole lot of information, but the information we've requested. I think if we're looking for more robust info, the discharge nurse, I'm forgetting a name, but I think nurses have had a little bit more luck if they're looking for more info going that route.
Okay, Cheryl Virella or Patty Manning, probably.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, sometimes, yeah, we just need a little bit more info, and maybe they have more, I don't know if they have more time or willingness to share a bit more.
Yeah. Patty Manning did talk to me. She asked me how to work with you all when you did call for information, so I was able to give her feedback on that. And so just let me know if that's not going as you intended.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, if anything, if you can pass along when they share information with us, we are hoping that keeps more people from coming down with COVID-19 and ending up in the hospital. So, you know, our purpose is really to cut down on transmission, cut down on infection, which should help them. So if we can work together, it's awesome. So thank you.
Yep, that was my message. Thank you.
Okay.
And Barbara, also some of the other performance improvement staff at the hospital have been very helpful in getting us information.
Oh, excellent. I'll pass that on to Carol Jones and her staff. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay, hearing none. Two other items before we adjourn. One is, as I mentioned earlier, the Board of Selectmen will meet every Tuesday at 4 p.m. via Zoom until further notice for updates and just to check in, and obviously the other town business as well. So every Tuesday moving forward, we'll be meeting at 4 p.m. Via Zoom. The last item on the agenda is public comment. We have a number of people.
Can I make one more? I'm sorry, I should have said this during Selectmen.
That's
I don't
fine.
have the agenda printed. Can I just make one more comment?
Please.
I think we have such a huge audience tonight. I think we're at like 70 people or something.
69.
So I just want to take advantage. So just in case people don't know, Mitch's office has set up a COVID email and phone number that goes directly to Town Hall, and the email is covid19@rockportma.gov. And then the phone number is 978-546-5000 extension, the number 4, and then COVID. And I think it's really important. These are obviously unprecedented times that you said at the beginning of the meeting, but residents could have, needs that we can't even imagine what they are right now, and be struggling in ways that we don't know, whether it's with a bill or we put some resources on the website for finding groceries, but please, like friends, neighbors, encourage people who are struggling in any way to use the email address and phone number, and we can connect people, whether it is to the Open Door or to other organizations that can get them help. But the resources are available and exist now to get everyone the help they need. So please help your friends and neighbors connect that way.
Yeah, the last thing we want is any resident in Rockport, anywhere for that matter, to go without. There are so many social services out there that can help individuals with all kinds of things. So thank you for bringing that up, Sarah.
Yeah. There is a lot going on. There are a lot of people being extremely generous and trying to get people what they need. I know the Open Door has just exploded with what they're doing, and that includes Rockport people. And obviously we hear a lot about Gloucester because it's the city next to us, but no one on Cape Ann should struggle alone. So
absolutely, well said. Thank you.
Do you have an update on, I know last week we talked about people who are having a hard time getting groceries and grocery deliveries.
Yeah.
Do you have an update about that? Because I think that you and Leslie were going to go on and try to see what Instacart was like, or.
I do. We actually, can I just?
Of course.
So we created a Google Doc that's on the town website, and I'm kind of keeping it updated daily. And it has all the different local markets with the various ways you can get delivery from them. It kind of ebbs and flows. Shockingly, it's practically impossible to get a Whole Foods delivery right now, but Instacart today was same day. So it kind of goes up and down, but I can share the link to the Google Doc, and it's also on the town website, and I'm trying to keep it up to date. For example, Common Crow just added, Henry's just added delivery. So I'm trying to keep it kind of up to date as possible.
And is it possible to update that when restaurants open in town? What's open, who delivers?
That's a great idea, actually. I can add restaurants as well.
Thanks.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
While you're on the subject of Instacart, I just want to remind everybody to be very, very wary of or aware of scams.
Yeah.
My mother-in-law was scammed by Instacart. Now, I'm not saying it's not an indictment of Instacart. It's just that it can happen in any facet. There was somebody who said that they were there picking up her groceries at the Danvers Market Basket, and the store was being evacuated by the police, and that she should cancel her order. And it was just a big fiasco. So just please, everybody that is using these services, that really is some people's only way of getting groceries right now. Just be careful. That's all. And if you have a question, call the police department. If it looks funny, if it sounds funny, it probably is funny. So give them a call.
That's a great point, John. I'll put that warning on the document as well, so people know
Thanks, Sarah.
if something seems fishy, it most likely is.
Right. And this was so.
Yeah, what a shame. Especially in a situation like this, there are people that will scam. Oh, it's terrible. Anyway, anyone else? For anything else before I move to public comment? Okay, we're at the part of the agenda where we'd like to hear from the public. Please state your name, address, and we're going to go through Mitch. Direct the questions to me, please. And please, we have 69 people, and everyone will have an opportunity to speak, but try not to repeat from other speakers over and over again. Let's try to keep this succinct as possible. Okay, Mitch, you want to start off the first?
So if folks could please utilize the raise hand function, if that's an option, we'll start there and then we can deal with the phone piece right after. But those who have the ability to use the hand raise function, please do. And Mr. Chair, we'll work our way down. Tom Barrett has his hand up. I'm going to unmute him. Tom?
Go ahead, Tom.
All right, thanks, guys. This is Tom Barrett, Cedar Ave, also the Finance Committee. First of all, you guys are doing a great job. So I really appreciate the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Health, and Mitch. It's really reassuring to listen to you guys think through these various issues. So much appreciated. One suggestion I was going to make is as we move ahead, obviously mandatory mask wearing is a great idea, or face covering, but you might also want to think about some traffic control. And what I mean by that is of pedestrians. Perhaps we could start having using traffic cones, make it clear what if you're gonna walk down eventually the Bearskin Neck or through Halibut Point or through Dogtown, we have one-way walkways through these various areas, an exit and an entrance, so to speak. So something to think about perhaps in the coming weeks as we try to ease off of some of the restrictions. That's it. And again, thanks again for the great job you guys are doing.
Thank you, Tom. Who's up next?
Mr. Chairman, Dora Tevin.
Go ahead, Dora.
Thank you very much. Dora Tevin, 16 South Street. I couldn't sleep 5 nights this week because I didn't get my daily walk. And I say the following things. I want to end up with joggers. I've written this down to remember everything. Since anybody can be a transmitter, even after 2 weeks of testing clean, since we're in an ever-changing situation until a vaccine is developed, since we have such a high percentage of older residents in Rockport, since we have more and more out-of-town tourists coming, since spring and summer is coming, and since this is a long-term problem requiring a long-term solution, I'm looking at one specific thing right now because I read a number of scientific articles, and there is a stream called a slipstream, a cloud of droplets that follows us all when we walk, even with a mask on at times. For a walker, it's 16 feet. For a runner, it's 35 feet. And what I'm saying is, joggers, I really feel this one point I want to make, need to run on the street itself. They're running on the sidewalk. So if I follow them, by the time they're droplets, with or without a mask, but any moisture, especially they're huffing and puffing and spewing out, falls to the ground, it could be 30 minutes. I do not feel safe walking around the block in my neighborhood, even though I'm paying real estate taxes, and I feel I have a right as an elderly person to get exercise. What can you do about the joggers? Because I actually asked 3 of them, and they laughed at me and felt such an entitlement response, and I'm over 50 years their senior. And thank you for today. Thank you for your bold decision, but enforcement is number 1, because us elderly need to walk. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dora.
Mr. Chairman, one moment. Bean and Leaf Ice Cream Store has their hand up. They are unmuted. Please identify yourself, name and address.
Yes, Jed Coonley, owner of Bean and Leaf Cafe and Bearskin Neck on Rockport. Start with a thank you to everyone for the continued efforts as we move through this challenging time. Just kind of a few observations and points I'd like to throw out there. One being some of the stuff that is confusing with the mask wearing, saying that it needs to be done at all times, but then saying, hey, if you're on the beach by yourself, pop it off. It's kind of mixed messaging. I mean, I feel that, people do need to get the fresh air, and there's plenty of time in the town of Rockport that people do have enough space to do that. Another thing that's a little confusing is trying to say that we're supporting town, the businesses getting going again, yet having, big signage at the entrance to town saying that all the businesses are closed. It's a bit conflicting there. Secondly, or another point I think is COVID doesn't discriminate. So whether it's a resident or a non-resident, it doesn't matter. I mean, you can be a Rockport resident and sharing it with everybody as you cruise around the town, or you could be from Beverly, Manchester, Boston, a different state for that matter, and sharing it. So the disease does not discriminate. So I think we're putting a lot of emphasis on just Rockport residents creating this little cocoon. Yet we're a tourist town. We want to make sure that people know we're excited to have them visit us again, and we're excited to have them support us as a community again. Not just this kind of harsh, we're closed, Rockport residents only, everyone else is, not, potential carrier, but Rockport people aren't.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jed.
Anyone
Next.
else has their hand up? Give me 1 second to go through the screens. Anybody else wishing to speak? Please use the raise hand function if you can. That's under participants and raise hand. Otherwise, just give me 1 minute to go through here.
Take your time.
I don't see any other hands up. Give me 1 second to the phone line. Oh, hang on, we do have a hand up listed as Jamie's iPad. Jamie's iPad is unmuted. Name and address, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I have nothing to say except I can't thank you enough. Every single one of you is serving, whether I agree or not with your individual votes. I just can't thank you enough. It's a crisis. Almost everybody on this screen is a volunteer, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Just your name and address, please.
Thank you, Jamie.
Jamie Medea, 2 Holbrook Court. Thank you very much. You could be doing nothing, and instead you're on a Zoom call. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie.
Okay. Ellen Canavan, you are unmuted.
Okay.
Well, address, please.
Oh, super. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I did want to say thank you for making the masks mandatory. For all of us older people, it really is important for us to be able to go out comfortably. I would encourage you to put a fee on it, like they have in Essex. I mean, Essex no sooner put a $300 fee on not having on a mask, then everybody knew it. Everybody knew it and everybody pays attention to it. I would encourage you to do the same thing. I do have a question about the restaurants and the food inspector, in that I live across the street from a restaurant and it opened a little early. People were going in for their orders, and then you sit around and wait for it to be cooked, and then you take it and you take it out. It's really not much different than going to a restaurant, sitting down and eating it. And I am hoping that your food inspector does indeed check all the restaurants to make sure that they really do have a way to get the food to you without you having to go in and sit down for all the rest of the things. My only other thought as I listened to you talk was trying to keep people out of Rockporters. It's not open yet. You need a sign down by Route 113 that says, oops, turn left here, Rockport not open yet, and send people on their way north to other beaches and other stores and other populations who are perhaps happier to have them. Anyway, thank you very much. And thank you for calling on me.
Okay, anyone else looking for public comment?
Yes,
Okay, just identify yourself. Toby, is that you?
yes. Toby
Okay, go ahead.
Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have two concerns. First about your rules on restaurants and then about public meetings. I don't eat in restaurants, so it doesn't affect me personally, but your decision to allow people to order food only through credit cards is discriminatory and unfair, and I believe in this state it's illegal. It may sound like a good idea, but you need to check out the legality of it, and it's certainly not fair to those who don't have credit cards. My concerns about public meetings, I was told that the Board of Appeals had met within the past few weeks, and the meetings are posted presumably, but on the computer. They're certainly not in the newspaper, not that anyone has any faith in that. And if you are able to participate, a mistaken use of the word, in such meetings, if you have the proper technology, you can actually see the meetings. Failing that, as now, you can listen on the telephone. You have no ability to view the plans which are presented at the meeting, much less the ability to review them beforehand. So it's all stacked and doubly stacked in favor of those who are making applications to town boards, and those who might be skeptical or object to the applications have no ability to see the plans, prepare themselves. It's not a fair or decent proceeding, and I would question whether it's even legal. I think you need to look into such things. It would apply to the Board of Appeals. It would apply to the Conservation Commission. Z. Sepula brought up such concerns at the Conservation Commission, and they were rather abruptly dismissed. So I'd like a response to my comments.
Well, I mean, we're in, as I said, opening the meeting, we're in unprecedented times here, Toby, and we're doing the best we can, and we have been dealing with town council to make sure that we have things in order. So this is a moment that we have to do everything by computer, and we'll as soon as this virus is over, we'll go back to the regular meetings, of course.
And meanwhile, business goes on, and those who don't have the technology are second-class citizens.
But what would you suggest we do, Toby?
I don't know. I'm not a selectman. You are.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. And we're doing what other town and municipalities are doing, and we're doing the best we can. Thank you.
I believe they've called a halt to the meetings in Gloucester.
I have not heard that.
No.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Next.
Could I ask a question too at the end of this, before we close out the meeting? I had a text message question from another person, if I could.
Yes.
Identified as Kate here. Kate, you're unmuted. Name and address, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Kate Cahill, Katie's Gift Shop. Sorry about this. I can't figure out the camera thing. So you have my salt and pepper shaker. Sorry. I'm just wondering, the Rockport numbers for infection and whatever, is it comparable in line to the numbers in other towns of comparable size and et cetera? And for the most part, I live downtown. You know that I live downtown, Katie's Gift Shop, 3 Mount Pleasant Street. I have had no problem social distancing. Weekends, I don't think that's me. Except for the weekends when it's been nice, it hasn't been a problem getting downtown. Most of the time I'm out walking with the dog all by myself, and except for a car driving by, I haven't had any problem not wearing a mask. Yeah, I wear a bandana around my neck so I can pull it up if I need to, but it really hasn't been a problem except for the weekend. So I'm wondering, is the mask thing more for residents, or are we more concerned about outsiders?
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Anyone
I
else?
could just
Before we go
address,
to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mitch, Essex County is relatively high compared to some other places in Massachusetts. And I'd say the numbers in Rockport are consistent with the numbers across Cape Ann and in Essex County at this point in time. So, but there's enormous variability from community to community. Particularly, the numbers are less stable in smaller communities. So, but to address your concern about the extent in Rockport, I think we're fairly in line with the rest of Massachusetts, which is much higher than many other places in the country.
All right. Mary Beth, if you wanted to go, it looks like everybody as far as going who wanted to.
So I just got a text message comment from someone who had to leave this meeting, who was wondering if the town could work on a sign coming into town, talking about our new mask ordinance.
Yeah, so we will be sure that the messaging is very clear, and that will involve pulling at least one of the two signboards that we have. And we will look also at some additional signs made, like the ones that are currently on the welcome sign in the other two entrances to town as well.
Thanks.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, let me just flip through again. I see that Bean and Leaf has their hand up again. Let's just see if there's anybody else who hasn't spoken already. Let's see. Ross Brackett, are you raising your hand?
Yeah.
Okay, you're unmuted, Ross.
All right. Ross Brackett, 27 Main Street.
You're very faint. Could you speak up, please?
Ross Brackett, 27 Main Street.
Okay.
A little higher, Ross.
I gotta find. I don't know what my mic is. Might be over here.
Yeah, he's cutting out.
Better now?
We can't hear you, Ross.
How about now?
Nope.
All right, I'll pass for now then.
Why don't we go back to Ross, see if
Okay,
there's
we'll give it a minute. Yep.
I feel like we're running a talk show host here.
Okay, anybody else who hasn't
WBZ.
spoken yet? I don't see anybody else. So, Mr. Chair, we'll give Ross a minute. And if it's all right, we'll go back to Bean and Leaf for a second comment, Mr. Chair.
Please.
Okay, Bean and Leaf.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to just throw another second point out there. The previous caller or participant had mentioned the cash-only policy, which is slightly concerning, as well as I know earlier you were talking about cars only to do food side pickup. That also kind of discriminates people that don't have a vehicle or rely on public transportation. We are a small town where a lot of people rely on being on foot to go get food and whatnot. I just think that should be a little bit of consideration with trying to be fair to everybody and not discriminate towards people that don't have vehicles or people that choose to use the legal tender of cash when making purchases. Encouraging, I think it's good to encourage the contactless, credit card or pay ahead, and encourage maybe the vehicles, but maybe not a mandate. Just a final thought there. Thank you.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, I think that was the intention. I think there was some miscommunication about that. But I think besides the non-residents on Bearskin Neck, I think everything else just has to fall within the state guidelines, and the plan has to pass the food inspector. But I don't think I think it's just encouraging the cashless, which I've seen, all over the state. But I don't think we've made any other policies regarding cash, right?
No, they're not. No.
Yeah. So I think that was just miscommunication. So glad that's cleared up.
Mr.
Can we
Chair,
get
we'll try Ross again. Ross?
Is that better?
Oh, much
Yes.
better.
Yes.
Okay. I have two questions. Ross Brackett, 27 Main Street. My first question being, is carryout completely off the table, as in for restaurants and cafes that do have the ability to do it, only because we do have foot traffic and that could cause a buildup on the sidewalks, which we can't control because it is public property. So if we get a coffee and donut, say, multiple orders of that might cause a buildup. As well as, do we have an update on testing? I think you talked about it earlier, but just for restaurants to open back up about that.
I think that piece has been covered, right?
I was just wondering if it's been stated that carryout is not allowed, period.
No, so
No.
we're basically back to the state guidelines. So you prepare
Okay.
your plan, go over it with the food inspector, and if you can, if you can safely do carry out, staying within the state guidelines of allowing social distancing, then I would assume you wouldn't have an issue.
Yeah.
But it's all within the state guidelines.
Good.
All right, Mr. Chair, I don't see any others, and we've gone through the phone lines as well, so.
Oh, Sid.
Dr. Wedmore.
Sid, go ahead, Sid.
Yeah, just before we close, Paul, just would like to have the next Board of Health meeting in a week on Thursday as well. We haven't set a date for that. If the rest of the members are okay with that, 6 o'clock next Thursday?
Just Board of Health, right?
Yeah, just Board
Let
of
me just unmute Sadie. Okay, Sadie's unmuted, Ron's unmuted. Okay.
But
doesn't sound like there's any objection, Dr. Wedmore.
Fine, Sid.
Okay, good.
Yep, it'll work.
Okay, anything else from anyone for the good of the order?
Real quick, Paul, I'd like to make, Mr. Chairman, I'd like
Yes,
to make
go
one
ahead.
quick comment if I could.
Sure.
A lot of people on this call have thanked us for what we're doing. And I think the thanks belongs to them for their patience, for them understanding that, we only have, and others on, whether they're appointed or elected officials, only have what's in their best interest in mind. So please, if they have questions or suggestions, even after this meeting, to reach out to us and share those. But thank you to them for their patience. And as you keep saying, and so rightfully so, unprecedented times.
Oh, yeah.
So thank you for that.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, so, Mr. Chair, just to recap on the next meetings, Board of Health, Thursday, May 7th, 6 p.m. Board of Selectmen, Tuesday, May 5th, 4 p.m. Is that correct for the two chairs?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's it, Mr. Chair.
Anything from, for the good of the order? Hearing none. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a
So
motion.
Moved and seconded, roll call vote. Selectman Wilkinson?
Aye.
Selectman Campbell?
Aye.
Selectman Donley? Oh, you gotta unmute her.
Aye.
I thought you wanted to stay longer. Selectman Ruth, George?
Aye.
And Selectman Murphy votes aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Be safe, and I'm sure
Thank
we'll be in
you.
touch.
Thank you.
Guys.